the WWE Flight from Hell. You've seen some of the stories over the years, right? I've been threatened to be sued by a few people because I went publicly and I said, well, that's not the story. I was on the plane. I was there and took an elbow from Brock Lesnar. That the minute she would call, text, come face to face, John Cena would jump like a little kid. I have so much respect for John Cena and Cody Rhodes, but getting to see John Cena do it in real time was a treat, and he learned from The Rock, who did it before him, but Cena was next level.
Welcome back to the Angle Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Joey Carney, and today I am joined by a broadcast legend, someone known for elevating talent in WWE, specifically the babyfaces, but also talent from PGA, ESPN, all the way to CBS. If you know sports, you know this guy. He's back behind the turnbuckle talking wrestling, and he's with me today to talk all about it. Please welcome the coach, Jonathan Coachman. How are you, man?
Oh, my man, it's exciting. It's exciting to be on your show today. I absolutely love doing these shows. I don't do a lot. I'll be honest with you. I don't do a lot, but there was something about you that I really liked. And also in 2024, wrestling has never been hotter. And so I never thought, Joey, that I'd be back enjoying discussing it again. But, man, I'm having a blast. I'm pumped to chop it up with you today.
I'm excited that you're back, doing your thing in wrestling. I know a few years ago or even a few months ago, you were kind of out, done with wrestling. And to see you back is just to see all the other Relapse fans that have come back as well. It is really an exciting time. But I wanted to kind of start about talking about your new show, Behind the Turnbuckle. I've been watching it. I've been loving it, especially that really that shoot moment, we could say, with DDP. For fans who are watching who don't know what I'm talking about, you had DDP on as a guest, and you were talking about Cody Rhodes, and DDP made the reference like, look at where he is now. And from the background, you hear Cody Rhodes, I'm on your couch. And you and your co-host, your eyes lit up. He came on the show. Spontaneous guest, the WWE champion Cody Rhodes. How do you feel about what goes through your mind when that happens?
Well, first and foremost, Behind the Turnbuckle started as a passion project. We've only been on the air for 3 months, and it's kind of exploded, to be honest with you. And the one thing we realized is that, and the one thing that in my gut that I've always felt like I'm pretty good at, is understanding what the fans want at home and giving it to them, but also, Joey, not second-guessing what you're going to do. So I was like, we're going to create a show where it's just about telling stories. And it's going to be about from the era when I was there full time, which was 1999, when I was in my early 20s, all the way up to the end of 2008. And then I've spent, off and on between that. But then my partner, Tommy C, that's what I'm most excited about, is he was 32 years in the WWE, never on camera. He was the head of the international television. So his mind and his knowledge is about as immense as it can get inside. And the one thing that's driven me nuts, even back when I was there, until today, is a lot of fans at home getting information or watching shows from people who have no clue what it's like to be in the writer's room, to be backstage, to be in the ring, to do interviews, all the stuff that I've done and Tommy's done. I said, you know what? I think this could be something. And then Conrad Thompson's a really good friend of mine, and so I've bounced everything off of him. So that particular interview to date is our biggest one by far. And DDP is such a good guy, but it plays to a couple of things, Joey, that the younger generation, wrestling is all about respect. And Cody Rhodes truly respects DDP because of the relationship he had all those years ago with his dad, Dusty Rhodes. And so when we scheduled that interview, because over the years I've talked to him a few times, and he starts talking about Cody Rhodes, we had no idea he was there. Absolutely no idea. So we're having a really good time. And I remember thinking to myself, man, my producer's really going to have to cut this interview down because DDP can tell stories and tell stories and tell stories. So when he looked up, and I want people to go to our pages Behind the Buckle, but if you search Behind the Turnbuckle, you'll find it. But when he looks up over here, I remember saying, I almost cut it. I was like, what's he doing? What's he looking at? And then Cody walks onto the screen, and you saw anybody that's seen my reaction. But I thought he was just going to pop his head in and then walk out. When DDP pulled up the chair and set him down, and then he started answering questions, I was like, this is why everybody loves this guy. He's giving really heartfelt answers for an interview that he wasn't even scheduled to do. And so if anybody thinks that he doesn't deserve every penny he's getting right now, or he shouldn't be the champion, or he shouldn't be the guy that's out there every single night signing autographs, they just don't know. I was thoroughly impressed with Cody, and he did us a huge solid, and I'm still shocked. I thought it would be a year before we would be able to get him, but to get them two together, it made it even better.
He really is like the ultimate company guy. I mean, he's there in a suit, like not scheduled appearance or anything like that. And what I thought was funny too is that he kept drinking from a cup that had the WWE logo on it. Like this guy is like pure company guy. Like it is just, it's actually really admiring and inspirational to see that, take place. But
if there's one thing that everybody knows that's ever been a WWE person, and this is the one thing that Vince, say what you want about him, that he always instilled in us, that I use to this day, is you always got to think about the brand within the brand. Yeah. Always. So if you're a talent in the WWE, you always got to be thinking, how can I help that brand while still helping my brand? And clearly, little things like that, you picked up on it. So how many other people picked up on it? It's really, really, details are important when you're building a brand, or you're a talent, or you're representing somebody. It's something that's a lost art, but very important.
And what we were talking about a little while ago before we even came on here with your show Behind the Turnbuckle, the whole idea, at least from what I see, is you're talking about an era in wrestling that people love, but also you're bringing on guests, even as yourself, that people want to hear from, the stories from the past during that time, 1999 all through the 2000s. It was an exciting time. So many things were going on that you most likely wouldn't see happen today, which is what makes it so, special.
Yeah.
But it's just cool to see what you guys are doing with the show. And then to add to it, Cody Rhodes, the current champion, stops in and sits for a half an hour or so and talks.
Well, the one thing that I've always thought about the WWE, Joey, is that in order for everything to happen, you need more than the two guys or the two girls in the main event at WrestleMania. Yep. You need the photographer. We had Johnny Photo on. You need the ring announcers, Tony Chimmel on. You need everybody. And we had the referee, Jimmy Corderas, on. And that was one thing that I said, you know what? Even if those episodes don't get big traction, or they don't get a lot of views, I don't care, because everybody needs to have a voice. And when you were there during that time, we were one big family. And most of the time it was a happy family, but not always. But the one thing I've learned from those interviews that we've been doing for the last couple of months is that everybody wants to go down memory lane.
Yeah.
And everybody loves, because it's their life. They lived it. And you can't minimize anybody's existence, no matter what their existence was. And so I think our strategy is working, and we're going to try to have one really big name every single month. And then we'll have, no disrespect, just smaller names throughout. And they're also going to add, Joey, a BTT Plus, where we're going to have a show called The War Room. And it's for premium members. It's just $10 a month, nothing crazy. And we're going to discuss the 5 biggest topics in wrestling, because we feel like our perspective, we understand it a little bit more than maybe the average person does. We're going to do live Q&As. We're going to do watch-alongs. We're going to do, and then like the big topics. For example, the WWE Flight from Hell. You've seen some of the stories over the years, right?
Yeah.
Well, I've been threatened to be sued by a few people because I went publicly and I said, well, that's not the story. So I'm not going to discount anybody else's story. But I was in the middle of it. I was on the plane. I was there and took an elbow from Brock Lesnar. So those are going to be the type of episodes that we do on the premium side for people who really want to consume more content.
I love that, man. I'm excited for it and everything you're doing with the show. But to kind of touch back on what you were talking about with Cody Rhodes, you were able to share a locker room earlier on with Cody Rhodes when he first got into WWE, but also with John Cena, who everybody knows that you've been close with over the years and traveled with or so.
Yep.
Many compare Cody now to what John Cena was, being, the face of WWE. What similarities do you see between the two, that, being in both locker rooms with them? And have you been enjoying Cody's title reign?
Well, answer to the first part of the question is a lot. And this is one of the things that and I tell mid-card guys all the time, don't just sit around all day in the stands like a lot of the guys did back in the day when I was there and hope that somebody's going to come up and talk to you and give you a storyline. And the one thing that John Cena always did, even when I was there when he first started, he started 3 years after I did. He was the prototype when he came to the WWE. People forget that. And the one thing that he always did, he was hungry. He's always in there bumping, always in there working, always at the gym working out. And that's what I see from Cody Rhodes. But the one thing, and we traveled together for probably 6 to 8 months, I would say. And he always wanted to do everything. And I think at certain times of his movie career, that's been a detriment to him, but it's his, and he's allowed to do that. but he always put the fans first. And I remember there's this woman named Sue Aitchison. She won a big award at WrestleMania a few years ago. She ran the Make-A-Wish and all the charity arms of the WWE. And in true WWE fashion, they just fired her like 3 or 4 weeks ago. Why do you got to do that? She's 70 years old. She's amazing. But they did it. And that's the only person, Joey, that I've ever seen that the minute she would call, text, come face to face, John Cena would jump like a little kid. There was never a time that I ever saw him tell her no. He set a record for the most wishes granted for Make-A-Wish. So when I see Cody Rhodes recently in the overseas tour, and he's not only meeting the kids backstage before the show, he's then taking them into the ring after the show, dressed as him. And do you know, Joey, that he rented his own car service? And for people who don't know how expensive this is, there's usually 2 buses when we're on overseas. Baby faces in one, heels in the other. So if you show up to the hotel, people, at least try to make it look like there's something real to it, right? So Cody wanted to stay after every single show. So he rented his own car service. So to do that by the day, you're talking $500 to $1,000. So if you're doing it over the course of 10 days, he's spending anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 of his own money simply so he didn't make the other talent wait and the buses could go and he could stay as long as he wanted to stay. And that's who John Cena was back then. I have so much respect for John Cena and Cody Rhodes, but getting to see John Cena do it in real time was a treat. And he learned from The Rock, who did it before him, but Cena was next level when it came to really, really making people feel good. And Cody's doing the exact same thing.
I love that. And you see it play out on TV today. You see he's even giving away pieces of tables that were broken after shows at live events and doing everything that he can. And like even what we were talking about when he came on your show spontaneously, he was in a suit, mug with the WWE.
Always.
He gave you his time as if he knows the job as the champion, and he is truly the face of WWE.
And utilizing a platform. I want people who are watching the show right now, and I want you, Joe, to understand, if you have a chance to be on a platform, I don't care how small or how big it is, take the opportunity to make it worth. I always say this, don't be too cool for school. Meaning, I don't care if I'm on The Undertaker's podcast, your podcast, or a podcast on the moon. If I show up, you're going to get everything that I have for that length of time that I'm there. And that's what those guys do. And Cody understands that because you saw an interview that normally you wouldn't have seen. And Cody understands there's a lot of people. Maybe he made a new fan. Maybe your kids are fans. Maybe your grandmother's a fan. But every time you have a chance to be on a platform, use it to the best of your ability.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And to touch on John Cena, he recently stated in an interview with People Magazine that his WWE chapter is coming to a close, which we all kind of knew at this point. That's where he was going. One, do you think that he is, the greatest of all time? Because that's when he does return, they label him the greatest of all time. And 2, should he break the record for that 17th world title, knowing that it is all coming to an end?
I don't want this to come off as disrespectful, because at some point I'm going to run into Ric Flair again, and he takes his stuff very, very personally. But at the end of the day, Joey, I could be a 17-time world champion if they so chose to give it to me. So to me, that record means nothing. The kind of person he is, the way he went about it, the way he trained every single day in the gym. We had a trip overseas we always did 10 days, and it was 10 shows, 10 days. He literally, Ric Flair talked him into drinking alcohol, because that's what world champions have got to do. Yeah. And he literally drank every single night, closed the bar down, paid the bar tab. I asked him on day 9 how much he spent. He said $35,000. I said dollars? He said pounds. It's 2 to 1. So it was $70,000 he spent on alcohol just because he's the world champion. Now, don't feel sorry for him, because he was making 50 to 100 grand a night in the main event. But the last night, Dean Malenko walks up to him, beer in hand, whispers something in his ear. He puts the beer down, heads straight for the elevator, says nothing to nobody, and disappears. Dean Malenko had just told him, tomorrow night you're going 60 minutes with Shawn Michaels on Monday Night Raw.
One of his greatest matches of all time.
You remember it, right?
Yep.
And I remember standing there because I was traveling with him at the time, and out of respect for the effort and for what he was doing, I stood at the gorilla position for him to walk back down. When he walked towards me, you could smell the alcohol coming out of his pores, but he gave 60-minute absolute banger. And so I really don't care if he gets to 17. If it means something to him, then I do care. And if that's a record or a number that he wants, awesome. But he's doing what everybody should do. Like, I don't like the fact I was ringside for Ric Flair's retirement against Shawn Michaels. One of the great lines of all time.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I love you. Right? That should have been the end. But then you have another one and another one because it's very hard for people to leave the business. Hell, I've come back 2 or 3 times, but I'm not Ric Flair or John Cena. I think John Cena realizes, A, his body's beat up, and B, you could only look that good for so long, and you don't want to go out there and have the wrinkles on the muscles, the veins kind of popping out when you were in that kind of shape for 20 years. Yeah. So I think now his movie career is good enough. His voiceover career is good enough. And I think he's in a new relationship, or fairly new. I met her a couple of times, and I just think he's ready to move on. But will they give it to him? I doubt it. I doubt it, because it just wouldn't make a lot of sense to me with all these other top talents that are vying for that position right now for him to come back in. And they also bitch and moan and complain. Let's be honest. When somebody drops in, there are people bitching about The Rock for 4 months. Really? Did you see the ratings? Did you see social media? Did you see that? So anytime I hear that, I'm like, stop it. Instead of complaining, go do something. Come up with a storyline. Come up with a character. Learn how to talk on the mic. That's the whole reason I was able to be a heel. That they came to me and said, you talk better than half the roster. And I did, and still do. Yeah. And you got to be able to do it. And Cena understands that, and he's done it almost better than everybody, but he's not the greatest of all time. To me, The Rock will always be the greatest of all time because I saw it firsthand. I've seen all the top 5 that you talk about. I was there. And to me, there's nobody that was able to be more diversified and better than what The Rock was able to do. Love Taker, love Stone Cold. Hulk Hogan was a big name, but The Rock did it, moved the needle, made the company worth $1 billion, and then got a huge movie career out of it. That, to me, that's GOAT status right there. He's, to me, the greatest of all time.
I have to agree with you there. There's a lot of the GOAT term, I think, is so subjective to everybody because they have their own boxes of what they want to check. And what you're referencing, I think it does put The Rock there as well. You know what I mean? So to touch on your career in WWE, well, before that, you mentioned movies and such. You're doing a new movie as well. We were talking about. Yeah. What's going on, Mr. Hollywood?
Yeah, it's been kind of fun, actually. I ran an email like 5 months ago, and most of the time I don't respond to them. Yeah. Just because you get a lot, and most of them are scams or whatever the case might be. You're trying to get hey, I'm a fan. But this was it was a movie casting director producer, and there's a lot of companies now, Joey, that are making what we call lower budget movies because the big $100 million, $200 million blockbuster, they're few and far between. Yeah. So this guy was making an MMA movie and wanted me to be an announcer in an MMA movie. It's kind of underground. Rampage Jackson is going to be in it. The Godfather, who's going to be the guest next week on my show, he's in it. We'll be shooting with him this coming Wednesday and Thursday. But I was like, you know what? I've always wanted to do movies. But the hardest thing to do is to chase a movie career while you're still doing whatever it is you're doing every single day. And you either have to have FU money and take 3 or 4 years off, or you got to do it in real time while you're doing the other stuff. So I figured right now, while we're building our brands and I'm not at a network, would be the perfect time to do it. And I'm telling you, I made more connections from those 2 days, and I've got 2 more coming up. And they've already offered me 2 more roles in 2 upcoming movies with 2 big names that you've heard of. I can't say it right now, but that may be a future for me. But to be honest with you, my daughter is immersed. I live in California. She loves theater. So I did it so she could be a part and see in real time the business is. So now she's been offered a role in their next movie too. So that makes me feel so much better than anything else because I love being a dad. I've got 2 kids, and they're everything to me. So if I can help them and I can do something too. So we'll see. I don't know if I'll become a movie star, but I'd be lying if I didn't tell you that's pretty cool.
I love that when we were talking earlier, you said you want to just help people. And what you just said, your daughter, it loves theater. Now you're doing, movies to help with it. You're constantly helping people. I think that honestly, that's inspirational in itself. So kudos to you for that.
Thank you.
Referencing your time in WWE, we were talking about John Cena and Cody Rhodes being company guys. I put you on the same line as that as well. You really are, or were there, a company guy because you took every role that was given to you, you maximized it, and you did it, to the best of your ability. Being a backstage interviewer, being a commentator, acting GM, executive assistant, with Bischoff, and even competing against John Cena in a tables match.
Yeah.
What goes into one, really taking that and, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make it the best that I can. And two, even wanting to do all of those things.
Well, first and foremost, I realized when I was there was when the company went from being worth $100 million to $1 billion. So there, it was red hot. There was a ton of people that were wanting to do stuff. The show was only 2 hours, which I believe the Raw should only be 2 hours. So there's a lot of competition. So when certain things come in, I've always been an idea guy. And I think probably for the first time in my career, right here, right now, I'm doing all the ideas that are up here. I'm playing them out in real time, and they're working. And it's all about timing. And should I have done it 15 years ago? Well, 15 years ago, I went to ESPN. So when you look at the opportunities that were presented to me, I came as an announcer in 1999. That's all I ever wanted to be. My dream was to get to ESPN. My dream was never to be in the WWE. So once I got there, Vince was adamant that he wanted his backstage interviewers and play-by-play guys to be small. And he wanted even the smallest superstars, he wanted them to look big doing their interviews. Where I walk around at 6'3", 250, 260. I'm not a small guy. Yeah. And so after a couple of years and they realized how good I could be on the mic, Vince walked up to me in the gym, the office gym, and he said, listen, we have this idea, but you've got to be willing to get into the ring, learn how to bump, learn how to work, learn how to have matches, because if you talk shit, then you've got to be able to be willing to get your ass kicked on the other end of it, because nobody can talk, and then all these big, superstars are just going to let me do that. So they gave me about a week to decide, and then after that, it allowed all of those other jobs to open up, because I was never going to be a full-time worker or full-time wrestler. But what it allowed me to do, that if they, for some reason, needed a ring announcer at a house show on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, hey, coach, we need you to do this. And instead of just having a regular ring announcer, at the end, you could have the heel win, because you always want the crowd to go home happy. Yeah. So you could have the heel win, the crowd's unhappy, and then I would get beat up, get put through a table or something, and now it's a win-win. So I realized over from 03 to about 06 that I had a lot of value, because I could do anything that they asked me to do. But I will tell you that SummerSlam 2003, when I turned heel, it was such a creative way of doing it, because for several weeks I'd been, following Eric Bischoff around to get interviews and stuff. So when I came down to ringside, I could even hear JR doing commentary. Go, oh, there's the coach again coming down. A little cocky because he thinks Bischoff's going to beat Shane McMahon. Yeah. And I knew that at a certain time of the match, I was going to have to attack Shane McMahon with a steel chair. Yeah. And that was my first physical thing truly that I ever did. So imagine, Joey, that you're working for a boss who is this immense personality, this immense person. It's his company. Yeah. And they tell you the first thing you do is hit his son with 4 shots to the back and, quote, lay it in. Yeah. So I'm doing Sunday Night Heat, which was our big hour show before the pay-per-views back then. And I remember being nervous. It was one of the worst shows I ever had, because my mind couldn't stop thinking about that. So when Shane rolled out and I picked up that chair, I said, you know what? What do I have to lose? Yeah. And I just laid him in. And then Stone Cold Steve Austin comes down. And it's the only time in my entire life that I've lost breath. They kicked me in the kidneys or lungs so hard I couldn't breathe for about 30 seconds. Wow. And it was the first time I realized, is this what suffocating feels like? I'll be honest with you. I thought I was going to die. Yeah. Then the breath comes back, and then you continue on. I get back to the hotel that night, and fans are everywhere. Man, we never saw it coming. Man, we've never seen a heel turn from an announcer. All these things. So I knew it was the right thing to do, and that really opened up every role for me moving forward after that.
I know the stories, and a quick shout out to Chris Van Vliet. He's at the top of his game right now, doing interviews across the world, with everybody. And I recently I saw your interview that you did, and you talked about the issues that you had with WWE and going back there. Mm-hmm. And you said that you were basically done with wrestling in your WWE chapter. What's brought you back now? What made you, become like a relapse fan, rediscover that love or passion? What happened to bring you back?
Two things. Great question. Two things. First, Vince owed me a lot of money from the XFL. And I felt like for 2 decades, basically, I never told him no. I only told him no one time, and that was to go to Afghanistan when my wife was pregnant with my daughter, which I thought was a fair request.
Yeah.
Like, I'd already been there a couple of times. She didn't want me
Yeah.
to go. That's fair. He didn't think it was fair. So when you give people loyalty, you expect loyalty in return.
Big thing.
And the one thing I've learned over the course of a year, whether it's been wrestling or else, all I do is help, always from a good place. And I realize now I don't help anybody anymore because certain people will say, "Oh, I'm not making it. Well, I'm going to turn on anybody that help me." So it makes you not want to help. And so for Vince to do that, and then for Kevin Dunn on top of that, who was the man who hired me, he's a legendary producer, to not make that right really stuck with me. And it wasn't the amount of money; it was the fact that they did it. And they didn't make it right. So I was like, you know what? Why would I go back? And when I was at ESPN, just so people know, I did an interview with Vince when the Nuggets had a playoff game at the same time as a big WWE show. And I remember him saying, we want to keep your credibility. We don't want you to be the wrestling guy because you're on ESPN now and people might frown on that. And so for a long time, I fed into that. So the second part of the answer is when I went back, and I'm not going to name names, but I was not treated very well. And whether it was the fact that I'd already been there and they were a little bit jealous that I got put back into the commentary world, but I played into let's be the ESPN guy.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't have done that. That was a mistake on my part because the best version of myself is heel coach. I'm great when I talk trash. I'm great when I tear you down and then get physical towards the end. And there's no reason that in 2024 that I can't do that and still have credibility to host a sports betting show, to host a wrestling show, to work at NBC. Everything has changed now. Yeah. And so now if I went back again, because I would be open to going back now, but I would never go back and sit in the commentary chair and be a straightforward announcer. That's not who I am. That's not the best version of myself. And so that's kind of why I said I'm done, because certain people didn't want me there and they didn't want to work with me. And when you have a 3-person announce booth, it's like a 3-man weave in basketball. If you don't work together, it can come off as awful. And when I was there, it was, I'm in business for myself. That's what it was. They didn't want to work with me. And so I basically got shut out. And then the other part was during my first 10 years there, I missed one Monday night. So I was there for 520 or 19 out of 520 Monday nights.
Yeah.
Think about that for a second. 519 out of 520. So when I got back in 2018, I had a golf contract with the Golf Channel. I had to miss 5 Mondays. Wow. Well, I didn't miss that many in my first 10 years. I missed that in the first 6 months. And so other people capitalized on that, and Vince got pissed off. It was like, hey, if he doesn't want to be here, well, that's not the case. You called me, and I already had this deal in place. Yeah. So why would I give away that money? And plus, to stay in the sports realm and in the golf realm and to cross promote, I thought would have been a great opportunity. Yeah. Well, Vince didn't see it as that, so they took me off commentary. They made me like doing the pay-per-view preview shows. Yeah. So I only had to travel once a year, so I was the easiest guy to get rid of when COVID, cut everybody at the knees. But now, whether it's Tommy, my partner, whether it's the fact that Vince is gone, a lot of that, and to be honest with you, I just had to let the negativity go. You can't carry it around with you forever because it becomes a very big boulder on your shoulders. And I said, if I'm going to be a leader in this business, if I want people to follow me, if I want people to work with me or for me, then I've got to be an adult and I've got to move on. And that's the decision that I made. And I'm very happy that I did because we're having a blast talking about wrestling again.
Yeah. And I love that you were able to turn all that negativity and, into, positivity and really be able to come back and enjoy it again and even be open to potentially going back. So, kudos to you for being able to do that. Now to touch on your time in commentary, because you did mention, JR and even the 3-person announced team. I believe that you were involved with the greatest call team of all time, JR and Jerry the King Lawler. That to me is the greatest duo. You also had time with Michael Cole, Corey Graves, Renee Young, Renee Paquette, and all the people that you were able to do stuff with. In your opinion, who do you think is the greatest commentator of all time? Because I see a lot of people say today it's Michael Cole. A lot of people say JR. there's always names thrown around. You were able to work with all of them, really. So
Yeah,
who
yeah.
being, in your opinion, the best?
Well, Michael Cole is special, and
Yeah.
I say that because I walked in the door in '99, and he literally handed me. People don't realize how many shows we were doing internationally and domestically. He handed me 8 to 10 shows the minute I walked in the door. He had already been there for 3 or 4 years at that time. So now we're 30 years later, and I don't believe that he's ever missed a show in 30 years.
Yeah.
And the
Crazy.
one thing that we used to, it's crazy that we used to, and I still believe this to be true, but now they give guys off, but not him. Like you see Roman Reigns, significant time off. You see how good a shape he's in. I've been saying that for years and years. You give guys a month or two off. You don't need to do 52 weeks a year. Vince never believed that. Everybody else would say it behind his back. What are we doing? There's not even a chance to enjoy WrestleMania. So nobody's embraced that any more than Michael Cole. I don't know if I could travel every week for 30 years. I just don't know if I could do it. But it's not just the play-by-play guy that makes you great. It's having that guy to bounce off of. And I truly wish, and maybe I'll get a chance to do it in the future, but I always want to be part of a two-man team because because when I became a character, most color guys aren't characters. The King was a character, and he was fantastic, and his timing was second to none. And I don't know if he ever even prepared for a show, to be honest with you. I just knew that when he went out there, that he knew exactly how to get in, get out, and that allowed for JR or Michael Cole, whoever is working with him, to tell the stories and to get everything in that you need to get in. But I think, most people consider JR to be the greatest wrestling announcer because he grew up in that. He had a little NFL, but he's been since the early days of Georgia champion, so he's a true wrestling announcer. Michael Cole made himself a wrestling announcer. And anybody that doesn't put respect on Michael Cole's name now has no clue what it takes to call it at the highest level. He's called, I believe, more WrestleManias than JR has, I think. I could be wrong. But I respect him a ton. We traveled together for my first 2 or 3 years there. So I really learned a lot from him. So I will, but that dedication is something that I don't think very many people could do, honestly.
I love that. And now to see him, with Pat McAfee, and you could see him loosening up and having fun again on screen. I think that also really.
But do you know why? Do you know why?
Tell me. I don't know.
You don't have somebody screaming in your ear. We had Vince in our ear every single second, and that made it not fun. And anybody that doesn't admit to that now, they're just lying. I'm an open book. I'm an open book. And if I criticize somebody, that means that, I'm as honest as they come. And to go through 25 years of hearing that voice in your ear, and I got so good at it, Joey, that I could repeat, because if you didn't say it right when he said it, and you go back, people watch, you'll hear people stepping on each other all the time. It doesn't sound very good. But if you didn't repeat what Vince was telling you in the moment, because usually it was a line about a character or whatever, and I'll never forget, God rest his soul, it was something about Test. Yeah. And I said something, and it was the wrong thing about his character.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I get what are you doing? You're killing his character. Oh my God. You just destroyed him. All that you did. And I'm still trying to call the match. Yeah. And he's screaming that in my ear. So I feel like Michael Cole's kind of been let out of jail, so to speak, because now who are you going to put there in his ear that knows more than him? Nobody. He's called more matches than anybody. Yeah. And so he's allowed now, and for years he was in charge of the announcers. When I came back, he's the one that called me, and I don't think he does that anymore. He's just strictly the voice. Yeah. But that's the biggest reason you're seeing guys have fun. Plus, Pat McAfee's the guy that I look at and say, you know what? That's kind of what I want my last 20 years of my career to be, is multifaceted. He's big time at ESPN, still doing color commentary. And there's nobody saying now, Joey, oh, well, he's a wrestling guy or he's a sports guy. He's just a talented guy. Yep. And so I like to think that I help with that just a little bit to get that wrestling stigma off of people and just say, hey, we're talented. Put us on anything.
It's funny because we were talking about, you potentially being open to going back to WWE or being in wrestling in some capacity, and being the true heel coach that we all know and love. with a character like Pat McAfee, who is a complete babyface, I think that there is so much potential between something with you and Pat McAfee, plus being from the sports world and being able to blur the lines and really make it something, even if you wanted to something physical. There's so many potential opportunities there. If you were to return to WWE, what capacity would you be open to? Would it be
the ring? I know exactly. Yeah, I know exactly what I would want to do, and what you're describing would be something that we could do. I do not want to go back and sit at a three person table with Corey Graves or Michael Cole. I have no desire to do that. Yeah. I would do a 2-person commentary team, but in reality, what am I best at? There's a lot of talent that no matter how much they practice, no matter how much they try, they will never be good on the microphone. And to me, mic work is as important as in-ring work. And if you can't do it, you're not going to get over to the full capacity that you want, which means making yourself a main event star. So where I can help the most is being a sidekick to somebody, being a manager to somebody, putting together a group of people and leading them. Because the other thing I've learned in the last 15 years, I'm a really good leader. Like, I'm really good at making decisions and executing them. And so if I came back, I think that would be my ideal role in a 2-person commentary booth. But I think that would be a blast to do that now, especially with some of the younger talent that maybe don't quite understand how to cut a promo. I learned from the best. I was right there with The Rock for 2 years. Every single time he was going over promos, there's an art to it. There is a pause to it. There is a inflection to it. There is a understanding that it doesn't matter when the red light comes on, that you've got to hit it in this length of time. So if they tell you 60 seconds, you've got to figure out, how do I make it the most impactful 60 seconds that I have? And that's where I think I could really help.
I love that. And is there anyone in particular that you would see yourself being aligned with if that were the case, if you were to go back there and do that? Any names that pop up?
Well, I'll be honest with you. Not that he needs it, because I don't think he does, but I think it'd be fun to work with Drew McIntyre because he's such a big dude. I think having somebody put over how good he is and how big he is and all that would be a lot of fun. I don't think that somebody smaller would need somebody, because again, perception is also the reality. I've seen different stories, and I don't know how much is true about the Hurt Business not being reconvened because of the bloodline, and that I don't know how much is true. I became a big fan of MVP back in the day, and his story is amazing. We'll have him on our show at some point. But spending all those years in prison, turning your life around, and then coming out and making a name for yourself is amazing. So I think there's a lot of guys like that I could really help. And who knows? Maybe there's a guy at NXT or developmental that we don't even know yet that's being held back because he can't talk. And so I think I'd love to help somebody new as well.
Awesome. I have a few more questions here, and I'll let you go because I know you got a jam-packed schedule.
I'm good, man. I'm good.
You were in such a peak time in WWE, and if you look forward to 2024, Triple H is running creative in WWE. Shawn Michaels is running NXT, and you had some fun times, in your time in WWE with DX, specifically in 2006. What did you enjoy most about working with those two, and now seeing them in these more corporate roles today?
Yeah,
running the wrestling world, really.
Yeah, it's funny because I've got a couple of stories to tell you that it's funny how everything kind of works together. Yeah. And in 1999, the guy that they brought to Kansas City, because I was the only person, and we're going to do an episode on this, I was in the arena when Owen Hart fell and tragically died in Kansas City, and they were trying to sell. So they brought Shawn Michaels. He had just met his wife at the time, and I was the first person to interview him. So I've known him since 1999, first person I met. So then to fast forward, and we never thought he was going to work again. The back's all screwed up, and he was really missing it. And he went through a depression like a lot of guys do, and then they found a role for him. So it doesn't surprise me that he's running NXT, because he is born, bred, loves wrestling. And I think as he evolved and became a grown-up, because in the 90s, let's face it, from all the stories that I heard about and some of the ones that I was there for, he loved being Shawn Michaels. But he's also one of the most talented wrestlers of all time. And from his character to the music to all that. So it doesn't surprise me, because when you're at NXT, because I went there for a few tapings in 18 and 19, it's a great avenue to learn. It's a really small place. And to have somebody like him who's headlined WrestleMania and all of that is a great thing. For Triple H, I always knew that was coming. He took a lot of criticism back in the day because when I got there, he was still wearing blue jeans and the leather jacket, and he was a part of DX. And I had a job during the day called the pre-taste room where I would do all the interviews for home video or entertainment and all that. And so we had a deal with X-Pac and Road Dogg because they liked to partake back in the day, if you know what I mean. Yeah. And so I had to give them an hour's notice before I needed them on camera. And that's kind of who DX was. Triple H was never a part of that. He always had his eye on more and being more. So the first day that he walked in a suit and tie and carrying the briefcase, he looked so out of place. But we knew where he wanted to go. And we also used to say, because, when Vince had his daughter, she became of age, it's like, whoa, like I wouldn't even look her in the eye. I didn't want anybody to think anything about anything, right? Yeah. So, but it would be naive to say that nobody had those discussions to say, what would it be like to date Vince's daughter? Well, you can go one of two ways. You can either become, wildly famous and rich, or you're going to look for another place to work. He might be one of three people, Joey, that could have happened, it not work out, and he still could have stayed. That's how powerful Triple H was. And so when they came together and brought DX back, it was so much fun that they wanted to work with me. And the funniest part of it was it was April of 1999. I had just interviewed at ESPN, and I just agreed to a 3-year deal. My deal with WWE wasn't up until August, so I had 4 months left. I showed up in Rochester, New York, and I remember one of our PAs walks up to me and says, "Hey, Coach, do you have any thong underwear?" It was not normally the first thing you hear when you're walking into an arena on a Monday morning at 11 o'clock. Yeah. And I said, "Well, not on me, I don't." But and they said, "Go to the mall and get a couple of pairs." And I said, I remember saying, well, "What for?" "Oh, well, there's a skit tonight that you're going to need them." Again, what for? Yeah. But at that point, I'd only said no to Vince once, as I told you earlier. Yeah. And so I said, okay. And as I'm driving to the mall, I'm thinking to myself, I just landed a spot at ESPN. Now, whatever I'm getting ready to do tonight, and I'd already signed the deal, but I was fully expecting ESPN to see whatever it was, call me up or call my agent up and said, "Listen, we're done. We're not going to do it. We can't have this guy there." So I get back, and they were building a wall. And during the skit, they were going to, I was cocky in the whole thing. They were going to throw me headfirst through the wall. I'm going to lay there dangling. And then they went through that time where they were spraying DX on everything.
Spray paint, yeah.
Right? So they pulled my pants down. I have said thong underwear on. And then they spray painted my buttocks with the DX.
Yeah.
And I remember hanging there and saying to myself, Joey, this is where it all ends. My dream of ESPN ends right here with my big brown butt hanging out of my suit pants. Luckily, either nobody saw it, nobody said anything, but obviously 10 years later, I spent 10 years at ESPN, so it was fun. But those guys, and then the other one, do you remember where we did like the Western theme, where we had like wah 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 wah, where they were chasing me backstage?
Yes,
that was a ton of fun too, because to put those skits together, I love the creativity, and I love when you're standing around. Hey, how about we try this? How about we try this? And that's why I tell young kids all the time: throw stuff in. Yeah, try it. And that one took 3 hours, but man, did it come off great! Especially when I got stuffed headfirst into the trash can. But that's how a lot of those ended back in the day.
Yeah, honestly, at the end of the day, again, it shows you're a company, you're a loyal guy, you're a company guy.
Always.
Maybe ESPN saw that and they loved it. Like,
Maybe they did. Who knows?
I want to ask you a question. I'm sure you get it all the time. It's one of those generic questions that I try to stay away from in my interviews. But do you see yourself being inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame? Your thoughts on the Hall of Fame, and if so, who would you pick if you were able to induct you?
The answer is no. I always look at a Hall of Fame from a sports point of view. Yeah. And with no disrespect intended to anybody in the WWE Hall of Fame. But let's be honest. They try to check some boxes every single year. There are certain people, you see their name and you say, really? Yeah. I don't even remember them being here. And yet they throw them into the WWE Hall of Fame. the other part is there's no actual WWE Hall of Fame. It doesn't exist. There's no building. So for me, now there are a lot of guys that it means the world to. They love to wear the ring, and I respect them for that. And on the night of the Hall of Fame induction, but it's changed so much. Like this year, Paul Heyman got all the time which he deserved, and then everybody else is kind of thrown in. So to me, if they truly wanted to make it a Hall of Fame with in Saudi Arabia, they actually have one.
Yeah,
they actually have then it might mean a little bit more to me. But I think they brought it back, and it's not the wrestler's fault, it's not the talent's fault, but I think they brought it back for a chance to have another TV show the night before, because back in the day, remember, SmackDown was not on Friday nights, so you'd have that on Fridays. I was actually there. It's kind of cool. They would air a 1 hour special like early 2000s when Hulk Hogan got inducted, and Sylvester Stallone was supposed to induct him, and it was a live show, which is very dangerous in LA. And I was the voiceover guy, so I'm sitting backstage right here, and Vince is sitting next to me right here. Well, it's 10, 10, 10, 15, 10, 20, 10, 25, no Sly. And he was, the whole thing was Sly Stallone. The whole hour was Hulk Hogan. No Sly Stallone, 10:30, 10:35. And I remember Vince calling him every name in the book. That no good. He told me, he probably just berating him verbally. And it was like 10:47, a minute before we're coming back from commercial break, to where Hulk was going to be inducted, and then he'd have a 10-minute speech. Limousine rolls up. Sly Stallone walks out, walks right up to us. And I remember thinking to myself, Joey, I wonder how this is going to go.
Yeah.
And in true Vince fashion, Sly, Sly, gives him the hug, and they literally had no time, so they announced it. Excuse me. I announced him, and he went out. We don't use teleprompters really in the WWE. There was no teleprompter for him, and I remember him going, where is the prompter? Where is my speech? He was expecting us to have written something for him. But once he stopped, like 10, 15 seconds, he was great because he spoke from the heart. He talked about, filming Rocky three was Thunder Lips, right? 3. He talked about how great Hulk was, how being from the having a wrestler as opposed to a boxer was really, really cool. And his intro was phenomenal. But Vince was literally, I'm watching him in real time, just literally lose his mind. And then on a dime when he showed up. But that's Hollywood. That's Hollywood. You can't treat talent. I mean, they're scared to death of pissing off talent. They just won't do it. But that's what I remember about that night and the Hall of Fame. So I guess that's a long-winded answer to tell you. I really haven't thought about it because until recently, I didn't want anything to do with the WWE once again. Do I think I'm worthy of it based off of other people being in? 100%. 100%. And I could give you a full list of names of people that are like, really? But that's, to me, that's not necessary. I know what I think a Hall of Famer is. Yeah. And, but again, if I got to ask, maybe my answer would be different. I don't know.
I look at it as, being obviously as in a fan perspective, I look at it as it's a time to give someone their flowers. And I hate when they induct people after they're gone. And I think it's important to give the flowers while they're here.
That's fair.
For me, there's 3 names that always come to mind. It's Victoria, Jazz, and Umaga. Those 3 need to be in now.
Well, we just had Victoria. She was our guest this week on Behind the Turnbuckle, and she's somebody. And I think when you're talking Hall of Fame for WWE, Joey, it's different than a Hall of Fame for, say, the NFL. That is usually based off of performance. Victoria, well, when you're somebody that doesn't come up and then you change and you pivot and you evolve, to me, that can be Hall of Fame worthy. And her journey from fitness contestant to being one of the Godfather's hoes to being the women's champion to then helping the younger women come up. I agree with you. Now Jazz, on the other hand, to me, and maybe this is being too critical, but I need to see more from a character. And Jazz was a great in-ring performer.
Yes,
but as a character, she was not good on the microphone, and hence she never got promos. And that, to me, I can't induct somebody that is just a worker. You got to have you got to be the total package. Victoria could talk too. So, and you said Umaga, right?
Umaga, yeah, that was my 3rd.
Yeah, and unfortunately, he has passed away. And he was one of my closest friends actually back then. One of the all-time good dudes. You'd love him to death, Joey. You'd love to be able to have a beer with him on a Friday night. So I would agree with that. I love that guy, and I hate the fact that he's gone.
And I like at the end of my interviews, I like to ask the same question, and it's, what do you see your legacy being when you decide to retire from all the things that you do, whether it's WWE or everything you do in broadcasting? What do you want your legacy to be?
I hope that it is somebody that could do it all, somebody that was willing to help, somebody that was jealous of no one, who realized that, we're only on this earth for a very short period of time. So acting that way makes absolutely no sense to me. And that if you do things the right way, there's plenty of flowers, as you like to say, for everybody. And I also want my legacy to be the guy that knocked down the door. And the door I'm talking about is outside of the WWE, because when I got to ESPN, and it's the same name that Pat McAfee just buried 2 or 3 months ago. And this guy hated pro wrestling because he didn't like pro wrestling. He cut my salary for 2 years.
Wow.
To try to get me to leave. And I didn't. I stuck it out. And I'm very proud of that. Yeah. And this is also a person who I never sat down in a room with, never had a conversation with. And that's how personal biases can affect somebody when it shouldn't. And so I want to be known as the guy that knocked down the ESPN door, because now whether you're talking about Grisham, Charlie, McAfee, whoever it is, now there is no discussion on, well, can we hire the wrestling guy? No, it's like, can we hire him and can they still work there? Yeah. And I was the first person to ever do it. And for that, I want to be remembered as somebody who knocked down that door, who was able to do it all. And hopefully I've got 20 years left to really help future performers, because to me, I've never had a 9-to-5 job, and damn it, Joey, I do not want one. This is what I was born to do, and I will continue to do it until somebody tells me not to.
I love that answer, and I appreciate it. The last question I have for you here, the biggest storyline to date in WWE is the bloodline, and it's the biggest thing in a long while in wrestling.
Yeah.
I want to know who you think is the true tribal chief. I know you're a Rock guy, but is it Roman? Is it Solo Sikoa? Is it The Rock? Is it somebody we don't know yet? Who do you think is ultimately the true tribal chief?
Well, I think ultimately the true tribal chief has got to be Roman Reigns, because he's the one that brought that character to the table. Now, how they've creatively branched out is amazing. And to give Roman time off and to bring the new guys behind him right after WrestleMania, it did a couple of things. They made you forget that The Rock's taking time off to shoot a couple of movies, and then Roman's taking time off, because now you're feeding into other guys and you're giving them time for character development. Yeah. What they have the ability to do is a year-long storyline that could be incredibly creative. You could have guys turning on each other. Families do not get along a lot of the time. Yeah. And so this has been a really good thing. And this, Joey, is what I was preaching all the way back when I started. I said, if you get strategic and smart and give guys time off, give fans a chance to miss somebody. Because if Tom Cruise was on TV every single week, he wouldn't be Tom Cruise or whoever a big name is. You got to give people a chance to miss somebody. Yeah. And I think the Bloodline has a chance, because I think when The Rock comes back, I think next year we'll see Rock and Roman Reigns, and it potentially could be the most watched show of all time. And remember, the product's going to be at Netflix by then. Yeah. So there's going to be a lot of changes. Hopefully my brands are on Netflix by then as well. You never know. But I think the Bloodline is been really, really smart. And now you're able to use 8 to 10 guys very, very creatively. And I think that's a really, really good thing.
I love it. I love it. Coach, where could all the fans listening and watching, where could they go follow you and follow your show and all the great things that you're doing outside of wrestling? Or even,
I appreciate it.
No.
Or even within wrestling, right?
Yeah.
Well, my socials are the same at the Coach Rules, whether it's Instagram or whether it's Twitter. But my two brands that are really growing rapidly at Driving the Line is our YouTube handle and also on X. And then Behind the Turnbuckle, but it's Behind the Buckle is the actual handle, whether it's our YouTube page or also on the X. But those are our two shows. I think you guys would really, really like them. And if you're into storytelling, which is what the entire business is built on, you're going to love Behind the Turnbuckle because it's just stories. There's no controversy. All of that will be behind the paywall. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But for what people get every week, man, we just want to tell stories and we want to tell people our experiences so they can truly understand what it's like to be a fan and not read a dirt sheet every week and go, oh, well, this is what's coming up. No, just be a fan. Just watch it as it all plays out, then come to our show and we'll tell you why it played out that way.
And you never know who will pop up because, Cody Rhodes showed up.
You never know. That's true. That's true. You never know. You never know.
Coach, I want to thank you for your time today, but also from a wrestling fan's perspective, for your contributions and everything you've done for the wrestling business. As a kid, I booed you. I hated you for getting JR and Jerry the King Lawler fired from commentary. But today as a grown man, I respect you and everything you've been able to do and again, elevating everything. So thank you, for your time, but also for the countless memories and moments that you've helped create that will truly, honestly last a lifetime in wrestling.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. And for somebody in the wrestling business, it means the world to hear that. And if you booed me, that means I was doing my job correctly. But I want people to understand that whatever you're doing in your life, just enjoy it because you may not be able to do it for very long. So to be able to do this, Joey, and spend an hour with you, and now, you could never make too many friends in this business. And now we know each other. We can help each other out. That is what this business is to me now. So just enjoy it, folks. Watch it. Watch every show. Try to predict what's going to happen. But at the end of the day, be kind to one another because it's only entertainment. It's not life or death. So don't take it so seriously. But Joey, I can't wait till we do it again. And who knows? Maybe you'll show up on my show sometime. You never know.
Absolutely. I love it. And I cannot wait to do this again. Again, Coach, thanks for your time.
You got it.